sio hapa Mount Kenya, sijui sisi watu wa Mount Kenya, sijui sisi watu wa Western. Hapana, watu wenye wametuonesha mfano mzuri, na nataka niwaambie leo, ukiona hata sekta yenu haina Mkikuyu, ujue kuna shida, kwa sababu hao Wakikuyu ni watu wa maajabu, na hiyo ndio mfano mzuri ndio tuweke katika taifa la Kenya. Ukienda Lodwar utawapata, ukienda Mombasa utawapata, ukija Eldoret utawapata, ukija hapa Kakamega utawapata. Si kweli jamani? Ndio tunataka tushikane. Hii maana kusema sisi na watu wa Mount Kenya, sisi watu na mlima, hiyo maneno tuache. Wacha produce watu international kuko watu ya kona fulani. Tunataka Wakenya wote wajite wa Kenya.
Na nikio mwaiguire ni ndathire TV-inĩ na nĩ mwanjiguire na kameme ngiuga harĩa twahĩtirie kugĩrĩria mwarĩ wa maitũ Uhuru wa Kenyatta mũtũrekere. Twahĩtirie na nyona mwahĩtirie, twarĩ hamwe ithuothe tũrekerwo, nĩ ndoga tũrekerwo na tũkauga gwĩka mahĩtia ti ũru. Ũru nĩ gwĩka atĩa? Gũtirĩ rĩngĩ yurage kĩaga tukona muthamaki witu ka mutongoria witu wa nyumba ino itu tumugiririe reke ona ithu tukuage na mundu witu ono ko ni ahititie atutwara raini uria gututwara tondu nyumba ile ngeitirwa.
Now, President William Ruto has jetted out of the country for South Korea, and the president says he will sign contracts that will be very beneficial for the people of Kenya. Now, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua was among the people that escorted him to the airport last night.
Leo mimi naenda Korea kwa sababu ya mambo matatu. Nilikuwa Korea mwaka uliopita, tukakubaliana na rais wa kule ya kwamba tunataka kuunganisha university yetu pale ya iko Athi River na university yao, na wametupatia pesa bilioni 40 ya vijana katika creative economy, na hiyo pesa ndio naendea, ndio vijana wetu tuwasukume katika creative economy. Muliona nilitembelea one of the largest creative economy people in America, na sasa tunataka kutengeneza wenzao hapa Kenya. Ya pili, tulikubaliana na yeye ya kwamba nchi ya Kenya kuna sehemu kubwa haina maji ya kutosha, so tumekubaliana watatupatia pesa bilioni 25 ya vifaa ya kutengeneza mabwawa ya maji, mambo ya irrigation. Na vile vile tumekubaliana ya kwamba tukienda kule bado tutapanua mambo yetu ya kilimo na mambo yetu ya ajira. Tumekamilisha, wakati nilikutana na rais, tulianza kupanga mambo ya export ya vijana wetu wapate ajira kule Korea. So tunaenda kuweka sahihi ndio vijana 5,000, 6,000, 10 waende wafanye kazi, watuletee madola, tujenge Kenya. So hiyo ndio kazi mimi naendea. So si mnakubali ni ya muhimu? So niende ama nilale? Haya, asante, mmenirelease.
The newspapers, The Standard, Gachagua in yet another tiff over military chopper. Gachagua in yet another tiff over a military chopper. Power play. On 3 occasions, the deputy president has not had access to the aircraft, a military chopper for that matter, with a reason given each time. The latest is when he could not fly one to Bungoma because, quote unquote, he had not applied for one. Now that is a story that is on page 8 that the Standard are running this morning on speculation as Gachagua fails to use a military chopper to Bungoma, not the first time. It is alleged that this is the third time that he's not had access to fly a military chopper. I mean, he's the deputy president, so if he needs a military chopper to go to somewhere, then perhaps through protocol, then he's able to access one. However, deputy president allies claim that this is the third time the second in command is being denied a military and police aircraft. Gachagua allies have wondered whether he should be classified as a politician or part of the presidency. Now, according to a close ally who's not named on the Standard newspaper this morning, he says, or she, because we don't know who it is, that this was the third time the deputy president was being mistreated. On Monday last week, he had been assigned by the president to fly to Bungoma for an exhibition ahead of Madaraka celebrations, and he was scheduled to use the same fixed wing scheduled to use, or the craft which he was supposed to use while in Eldoret on Saturday and Sunday to fly him from Embakasi to Webuye airstrip. And all authorizations were in place by Sunday night. However, on Monday, the deputy president was informed the authorization had been withdrawn. A source who's not authorized to address the media told the Standard newspaper. Now, Gachagua had used a military chopper in his Rift Valley tour on May 26th in Keses constituency, where he claimed that a section of regional leaders with proximity to the president were interfering with Mount Kenya region politics. Now, claims that the DP Rigathi Gachagua was denied a military chopper to Masinde Muliro Stadium in Bungoma for the 61st Madaraka Day celebrations has further fueled speculation of a fallout with the President William Ruto. Gachagua's allies claim that this is the third time he's denied an aircraft, and according to the sources, the DP was informed that he could not use the chopper due to bad weather, forcing him to hire a commercial plane that took him to Bungoma and later to Nanyuki, where he was presiding over the Kikuyu Oldies music extravaganza. Now, this is one of the bases of the conversation that we'll be having in just a few minutes on what this now new developments between the relation of the president and his deputy really mean, and what exactly is fueling this. There's always a start to something. So where did this all start from? What is further fueling this? Is it the one man, one debate, one man, one vote, one shilling debate? Is it further fueling this sort of, a rift that we are seeing between the head of state and his deputy? Is it the questions on, the NADCO report? Is it the issue to do with Raila Odinga, who's now being sponsored by the state to run for the chairperson of the African Union Commission? So we'll try to get a bit more into this discussion just to understand this in just a bit. Because the Standard also says Gachagua bonds with Mount Kenya as his critics accuse him of being tribalism. However, he says, the Western calls for unity. There are calls within Northeastern, even the Eastern region of unity. Then what makes Mount Kenya different? So these are some of the stories that we'll try to get into in just a bit. So that is the headline on the Standard. Gachagua in yet another tiff over a military chopper. Also top of the page, intriguing White House rituals that date back ages, which are some of the things that President William Ruto was lucky to be part of as being the first sub-Saharan African head of state to go to the White House, and just the fourth, I believe, in Africa to go to a state visit in a White House. So the Standard has done a story on that. Also, Shujaa back like they never left. They are back to the HSBC series for 2025. And that was the competition, the playoffs that were happening in Madrid in Spain. Also, UDA fights expose Ruto's knacks of combat politics. Emerging rift in UDA mirrors Ruto's political career, which has been characterized by controversy despite always emerging victorious amidst the turmoil. Now let's talk about the Daily Nation, which also has got largely to do with the president and his deputy. Tanga Tanga as you wish, Ruto tells MPs. Tanga Tanga as you wish, Ruto tells MPs. Well, perhaps this is drawn from the popular Tanga Tanga group, back then, Tanga Tanga in Kieleweke. Now, head of state reiterates his call for national unity as Gachagua defends his Mount Kenya push. President William Ruto yesterday openly contradicted his deputy Rigathi Gachagua when he encouraged members of parliament to traverse the country in the conduct of their constitutional mandate, saying as lawmakers they should not be confined only to their constituencies, exposing the widening political rift between the duo. That is a story that is on page 6 and 7 also. Is this one of the reasons why there's a rift between a head of state and his deputy? Because Rigathi Gachagua says, you know, Mount Kenya leaders should be working with him. And even back then, Gachagua, you know, said to the Rift Valley leaders, you know, if you're not from Rift Valley, if you're not from Mount Kenya, really, do not talk about Mount Kenya politics because you may not understand. So Gachagua defends his push for Mount Kenya unity, even as Ruto says, it's your job to visit all parts of Kenya. Ruto tells MPs after Gachagua caution. So we'll also be having a deeper discussion around that, so stick around for that. But they've quoted what the DP says, and which is when we call for regional unity, it is not that we want to be united against anybody or for any other reason. Why would somebody isolate us because we're united? Well, the president says, and as an MP, don't be cheated into concentrating on representing your electorate only in parliament. You must traverse all regions for oversight and legislation roles. So that is the headline on The Nation, which we'll be having a conversation around in just a bit. Also, why students are shunning degrees for TVET diplomas. Why students are shunning degrees for TVET diplomas. That's an interesting one that you need to look out for as well on the Daily Nation. Then finally to the Star newspaper, how agencies ignored Ruto foreign trips ban. How agencies ignored Ruto foreign trips ban. The Control of Budget report says the institution spent 18.2 billion shillings in 9 months, the first 9 months of the current financial year. Whereas the austerity, domestic and foreign travel burst their budgets by 4 billion shillings. That is a story that is on page 4 and 5 of the Star newspaper this morning, that speaks on how state agencies defied Ruto trips ban. And the state agencies threw President William Ruto's caution about foreign travel to the wind, with fresh data showing that despite the directive, they spent $1 billion more on globe-trotting. A new report by the Control of Budget reveals that ministries, departments, and agencies spent 18.2 billion on travel in the first 9 months of this current fiscal year, that is 2023-2024. Now, MDAs banned 12.3 billion on domestic travel and 5.8 billion on foreign trips, which translated to a growth of 29% compared to a similar period last year. Now, for instance, who are the big travel spenders? Executive Office of the President from June 1st of 2023 to March 31st of 2024 spent 21.3 million shillings on, I believe million, yeah, should be million shillings. The Deputy President has spent 121.04 million. The Prime Cabinet Secretary has spent 30.75 million, while State House in itself has spent 147.6 million shillings, while in the same period in 2022 to 2023, the total was at 98.8 million shillings. Now, the National Assembly has spent 1.3 billion shillings. In the similar period in 2022 to 2023, it spent 1.1 billion. The Senate spent 592 million shillings in the first 9 months of the current fiscal year. The Judiciary has spent 166 million. State Law Office 53 million. The National Treasury has spent 55 million, while the Ministry of Trade has spent 36 million shillings. In the previous financial year, it spent 8.6 million shillings. So there's a jump in just how much trips are being made, even as President William Ruto jetted out of the country yesterday for South Korea. In Bungoma, he said, you know, he'll be at the front of ensuring austerity. Actually, at the National Prayer Breakfast, not Bungoma, but at the National Prayer Breakfast, he said, you know, he'll be at the forefront for austerity, because he says he did not spend 200 million shillings on the jet. He used to go to the US. He says friends of the Republic of Kenya contributed to that, and that only Kenya paid 10 million shillings. So That is one of the latest push for austerity within his government. So that is the headline on the Star newspaper. How agencies ignored Ruto foreign trips ban. The Standard speaks of Gachagua in yet another tiff over military chopper, even as the Daily Nation speaks of Tanga Tanga as you wish, Ruto tells members of parliament. Those are your newspaper headlines. All right, allow us to take a quick breather, but when we come back, we'll be getting into the conversation this morning that has got to do with the president and his deputy. What is happening between them? What is fueling this? Where did it all start from? Well, our guest in studio will try to take us through that, even as expound on much more of what has been labeled out on the newspaper. So stay with us. We'll be back concerning this, and we'll be able to interact with you as we proceed with this particular broadcast this morning. In studio, I'm joined by Muito Mureithi, who's a political analyst and a commentator as well. Asante sana Muito for coming in.
Thank you very much.
And I was just thinking, it's such a coincidence that anytime you're in studio, we're talking about Ruto Gachagua team. I mean, well, let's just get straight into it, Muito.
Yep.
Last week we had a conversation around this Ruto Gachagua tiff, but it seems to be far from over.
Yep.
These two leaders who got onto power, and in fact I remember during the deputy presidential debate in 2022, Gachagua said, you know, Ruto and I are tied to the hip. We can never not see eye to eye.
Yep. But
here we are. They are together on the same event like the National Prayer Breakfast. Little is said about politics. In fact, nothing was said about politics. They were in Bungoma as well. Nothing was said about politics. But it seems that opportunity that they get, and the DP rushes to, you know, Nanyuki, the head of state remains in Bungoma in different separate events, and now each is able to really voice out what they feel. But perhaps to just understand this better, where did it all start? How did we find ourselves in this position yet again, following what happened in 2018 between the then deputy president, who was William Ruto, and the former president Uhuru Kenyatta? What exactly is causing this rift?
Well, I think I appreciate the question that you've asked. We've spoken about this long enough, since I think last year, when we were trying to see the kind of strategies. Now that you are in power, what strategies are you going to employ to ensure survival in 2027, and also, you know, advancing towards 2032 agenda for the president. And like I said, is that any person who has a chief campaigner or person who is very influential in your campaigns, the best thing to do after you're being elected is to make sure that you downsize the person, the person's influence. And what is happening with Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is that the president is trying to downsize the influence of Rigathi Gachagua. The unfortunate bit is that Rigathi Gachagua was not granted the slot of deputy president on a silver platter as a favor. And His Excellency the President knows that. He knows that Deputy President came in with around 4 million votes for the President, unlike what would have come from other regions. Because you talk about 4 million votes, and you needed 7.1. You garnered for 7.1 million votes. You can see the kind of influence the Mount Kenya politics have. Now, when he sojourned at Mount Kenya during the Tanga Tanga era, the people who actually gave him comfort, the people of Mount Kenya, much as because he had to make sure that, because at the back of his mind he knew that he wanted the presidency, and he had to be very careful with making sure that where the votes are, he has to go there. The majority of the votes that he needed, he had to be there. Much as there was, that indifference in the Rift Valley, so he needed Mount Kenya more than ever before. And if you can remember, even the conclusion of his campaigns, was actually within Mount Kenya region, I think for the last week also, until the last minute when they were running around, you know, to conclude in Kikuyu. So he was not going to Kikuyu, Embu, Meru to find Luo votes or Luya votes or Borana votes or coastal, Mijikenda votes in Mount Kenya region. This is a region, as it were. So the president, when you hear him talking about tribal politics, he is insincere, actually, not only with Kenyans, but with himself. Or to the fact that when he was canvassing for votes, he didn't care that the Mount Kenya people were saying, you know, watu wetu, nyumba ito, you know, the Luya community was saying, avandu bosi, tupigane, turushe kura kwa Ruto. So these things were they were as tribal as they were, and that is where we come to a point where we say, and this is where even the national cohesion and integration organization is supposed to really get out of that misconstrued understanding of what tribalism is all about. Belonging to a tribe is not a problem, but the attitude you are carrying yourself based on tribal tenets is what matters most, because one is supposed to, you know, understand that the other person has come from from another tribe, and we respect and love each other. That is very positive. Loving and respecting you, having come from the Western, and I having come from Mount Kenya, we just choose. It's a choice, personal choice. It's not a communal choice. It's a personal choice. It all begins from an individual, goes to the family, goes to the community, goes to the region, goes to the tribes. That's how the formations come around until we become a nation. So while we want to become a nation that shuns tribalism, we must inculcate good virtues, principles, and understanding within our cultural mindset. So what is happening right now is that the president is worried about Rigathi Gachagwa's influence. At the same time, there is that misinterpretation and a wedge that is being drawn by people who had been against the unity of the Mount Kenya people and William Ruto during campaigns. So some of them are taking it still into this new era where we have a government. So definitely they will still try to propagate the agenda. It's like somebody who is trying now to, somebody who like now see, you will read the dailies, like now the Daily Nation, you see they're trying to revive the Tanga mentality, you know, by saying that that is what the president meant. When Rigathi Gachagua was in Eldoret, he said that every region to organize their politics for the good of the national politics, because the Western today are meeting as Mulembe Nation. Yesterday I heard Boni Kalwale convincing their people to look at politics in a certain direction, and many others who actually made their speeches there. When you go to Mount Kenya, they will still speak as nyumba itu, because when they went there, when they were canvassing for votes, traversing the whole country, where they were going to regions, and region A would go to region B together with William Ruto and convince them, please allow your community to support this, you know, this incoming government. So what you're trying to say is that yes, there's a difference between the president, but the president has it that he needs Mount Kenya vote in 2027. So he's very careful, but at the same time, he's also testing the waters to see how deep it is, very carefully. So he's not really going to come out bare knuckles fighting Rigathi Gachagua directly. But the interpretation that may be born out of it is what may actually be consequential to him. So the president himself should currently we see like now the military, the lack of a military chopper to take Rigathi Gachagua to Bungoma was something that just it was well planned, well choreographed. It took place by some people who wanted to ensure that they frustrate Rigathi Gachagua. But at whose detriment? The president. Because anytime Rigathi Gachagua will be hit, he'll be running to his people, to his 4 million and plus this other team that he is trying to reach out that supported Uhuru Kenyatta and his agenda in 2022. So we're talking about close to 5 million votes. And he will always run to it. He knows where his center of strength is. So the politics which are there right now, the president is allowing Rigathi Gachagua to be frustrated, but of course, like I said, he's trying to downsize Rigathi Gachagua, forgetting that Rigathi Gachagua is not seated there as Rigathi Gachagua is seated there as a community. Because they did present Rigathi Gachagua as the Mount Kenya icon. He was presented as a Mount Kenya icon, but he was actually supported. The base of his establishment is the Mount Kenya vote. Now, when he started talking about the 1 man, 1 shilling, whatever, is something that is very critical, crucial for the Mount Kenya people, based on the population, and other regions affected. And so to kind of, sideline these talks, you create something else which people are going to think about. Let me strike Gachagua severally, numerously, so that people can focus on Gachagua. But you see, on one end, Gachagua is also gaining popularity in his region. On the other hand, we may not really exhaustively conclude this discussion of 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling conclusively. But what is there is that the budget will have passed, the budgetary time. So we want, the people from Mount Kenya had negotiated for that. It was part of the agenda that 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote should be included in the next government that comes up. Yeah, it was part of it.
In the run-up to the 2022
elections? Yeah. People were saying the CDF money that had been that was being shared amongst members of parliament was always equal, and you would have wished the 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote. Remember when it came about as the BBI, the people who were on the other side of Ruto, they said this is not the time to campaign for that thing right now, but since elections were there and there were no resources, they wanted this thing to be discussed thereafter. So while we were criticizing the 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote in the BBI agenda, it was shifted to after the government. It was not a bad thing. They shifted it to the other government, because they said at that time some of these things would call for referendum, yet we are heading towards elections. So in Mount Kenya there was this politics that was going on, that this will have to hammer it as much as we can, as much as they can, as Mount Kenya people, because of that population factor. So the difference you're seeing is the president himself must downsize Rigathi Gachagua. So you'll see a lot that is happening. But after the budget is presented, is read in Parliament, after conclusion of the budget thing, then I think the politics will definitely change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you read into what the Deputy President has been doing of late? And that is sort of extending an olive branch to the former President Uhuru Kenyatta. And it's interesting because anytime he goes to the Mount Kenya region, he sort of reverts to his native language.
Yeah.
And so it has to take, for the people within the region, obviously they do understand, but for the other regions, they have to wait for somebody to really just translate what he's saying. But for him to sort of extend that olive branch, it wasn't the first time. He's done it a couple of times now, and says, that is our son. We were redirected the wrong way in terms of, throwing stones, perhaps figuratively, at, the former President Uhuru Kenyatta. Why now does he realize that, what was happening back then was sort of scripted?
In life, when you want support, you must reach out. Forgiveness is a part of it.
He wants Uhuru's support?
Definitely. When you talk about Uhuru's support, when you talk about having a community working together, there was a time Musalia Mudavadi was not seeing eye to eye with Moses Wetangula, you know. But they had to unite for one cause towards the elections of 2022. They had to call upon each other. They had to forgive one another. And that was the campaign that was being run by the people who wanted to have that formation alive. When you went to Rift Valley, his home turf, there was a difference. There was a sizable chunk of votes that were with Gideon Moi and the Moi family. Yeah. And he had to beg them also not to misunderstand his agenda. And when he became, today, the Kalenjin community is one. When Mount Kenya meets, it becomes tribal politics. When Mulembe Nation meets, it's development agenda. When Mulembe Nations have Mulembe Night, is the development agenda, and they speak politics there. When Mount Kenya have Mugithi in Nanyuki and have their own, visit them, he is now not Kenyan, he's a Kikuyu. But what I'm trying to say is that the regional formations, they emanate from tribes. We have 16 Luya tribes, I think, and they're working right now towards uniting the 16 tribes to think like one, you know, for the sake of 2027. This is a politics that is going on in Western Kenya. When you go to Nyanza, same thing. When you go to Mount Kenya, same thing. Rift Valley, they have it. Okay, they're the champions. The challengers are the people who want to deputize the president and also have influence in the route of government come 2027 and even currently. So they have to drive a wedge between the president and his deputy William Ruto. So I mean, this is politics. Calling for unity for a region, if it wasn't demonized when they were canvassing for your votes, then it should be demonized. Even right now, when they are still ensuring that they remain united as a bloc. So going out for Uhuru, one must be wiser than the other. We always say, be wise, fight foolishness with wisdom, fight hate with love, all these kind of things. And since Uhuru Kenyatta loves the Kikuyu community, and Rigathi Gachagua loves the Kikuyu community, and both are symbols of unity for the Mount Kenya people today, as we speak, in terms of influence and of support they command. Mount Kenya right now is working towards uniting so that they can make their demands clear in the route of government. What does Uhuru, just like any other region.
What does former President Uhuru Kenyatta bring on the table, putting in mind that Rigathi Gachagua is the senior-most person in this Kenya Kwanza government as the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya? What does he hope the former President Uhuru Kenyatta will bring on the table that will be the benefit of his time right here within the Kenya Kwanza administration and of the people of Mount Kenya region?
Remember, I've categorically used the word, they are symbols of unity for the Mount Kenya region. Mount Kenya region did not reject Uhuru Kenyatta in 2022. They rejected the candidate Uhuru Kenyatta presented to them. They had rejected Raila Odinga as their candidate. So they were not against Uhuru Kenyatta. They were against what Uhuru Kenyatta was driving us into. That is the people of Mount Kenya. And I mean us because I was in the Mount Kenya politics. What I'm trying to say is that the people of Mount Kenya were being driven to support Uhuru's choice. Uhuru's choice was not presented to the Mount Kenya people to agree on it. It was his personal choice. That is where the difference came in. Had he gone to people and asked them what they think, then that would have really worked well for him. So what you're trying to say is, peace with Uhuru Kenyatta means those who supported Raila Odinga and those who didn't but didn't have a problem with His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta and had a difference, a problem with Uhuru Kenyatta's choice, now are coming together now to unite. Now that is what Gachagua is aiming to do, to bring all of them together. And the only way to do it is make peace with Uhuru Kenyatta and the Kenyatta family. Yeah.
All right. Now there, I'd say factions that are now formed between some of the leaders in Kenya Kwanza region. We saw the group that was with President William Ruto in Bungoma. There was the group that was with the Deputy President in Nanyuki. And the ones that worked with President William Ruto, including Professor Kithure Kindiki, called on, it was a direct rebuttal to what the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua had said concerning, he sees darkness ahead. He said this in his native language, but he says he sees darkness ahead and that he has been isolated.
Really?
He said this in his native language, and that he's been isolated, and anytime that happens, he retreats and doesn't say a word. And he says, anytime you see I'm silent, just know all is not well. Yeah. And there's a period a couple of weeks ago that he was very silent before he came out and really spoke about this. And so this direct rebuttal where we're having a head of state answering the deputy president, and you're having some of the leaders as well answering the deputy president, does this further now poke hole into what really Gachagua stands for? And they say it's not the right politics for the Republic of Kenya.
You see, even in any marriage, it's not the same every morning. Even when you wake up, the mornings are not the same. You wake up one morning, you don't feel like even talking to your partner because of certain differences. They arise. Sometimes the mood is just wrong. And when the mood is wrong, you don't go confronting the mood, trying to make it feel good. What you do is retreat. So what's the problem with retreating? And I'm not asking you the question, you're the interviewer. I'm only posing a question for Kenyans to think. What's the problem with retreating? To me, there's no problem. When you see things are not going the way you thought, you must think what you're going to say next, what you're going to do, how you're going to position yourself, how you're going to cushion yourself, you must plan yourself henceforth, because you can see if, like now the president is saying, is actually offering a misconstrued statement that everybody should visit everywhere. Nobody has attacked that constitutional right of freedom to go anywhere, to visit any place, to be in any place, to invest anywhere. That one is not an issue. The issue is, you being my neighbor, please, when it comes to my family affairs, allow me to invite you. But please don't be the one to step in and now teach me how to run my family. And that is what Rigathi Gachagua was telling guys in Rift Valley. We are not meddling with the politics of Rift Valley and how you had that formation united together. So please don't come and teach us on how to unite ours and keep ours intact. He didn't tell them don't come to Mount Kenya. That was a statement that has been blown out of proportion, maybe by media. But he never said that. Now, coming back to the president's itinerary. The president's itinerary is not the deputy president's itinerary. The deputy president's itinerary is within the president's mission to accomplish the good of all Kenyans. Yeah. So the fact that this time during that celebration he went back to Nanyuki, or he was in Nanyuki, does not mean that there was any difference. He had to be somewhere. And the following day he was elsewhere, and today he's somewhere different from where the president was. Today the president is in Korea. They can't share the itinerary. He can't be in Korea as the president is in that place. So it's only that sometimes we would wish to plan the deputy president's itinerary as much as the president's itinerary, and would like them to work together, much as they are one. I'm here right now at EBN. My wife is not here, but she's doing something else for the good of my family. And that is how it works. You know, she could be in the house, like Rigathi Gachagua being in his Mount Kenya turf, but still working towards what? Towards the good of the president's, mission for Kenyans. Yeah. So that thing of itinerary, I mean, he was left with somebody, Kindiki is somebody trying to take us to the negotiating table where Kindiki Kithure and Rigathi Gachagua he was supposed to weigh who to go for, okay? And out of his own reasons, he chose Rigathi Gachagua. He knew his strength. And if he has exhausted his worth, then he will still come out clear. But Kindiki Kithure is the Minister for Interiors. It's a national holiday, which has our military and everything else and everybody else in the forces within that region. The president's security and everything is his concern. So anywhere the president goes, definitely Kindiki Kithure would wish to hear what the president has to say about this, about these things. And it is only during this time that you're seeing Kindiki Kithure walking around with the president. Many other times Kindiki Kithure is running around within his official itinerary and duties. Fulfilling his duties. So we're only trying, the dailies, and maybe each one of us has got a perspective. We are trying to politicize. Regarding Gachagua not being there, Kindiki being on with William Ruto today or yesterday. But other times, he's never with the president. He's out there doing something for the sake of the president, you know. Right,
but wouldn't you agree that not every Mount Kenya leader supports this sort of politics that Rigathi Gachagua has taken on the one man, one vote, 1 shilling debate, to which we'll talk about it in just a few minutes. But it's also the response that has come out from some of the leaders of Mount Kenya region as well, who say, shun those kind of debates. Wouldn't you agree that not every Mount Kenya leader is supporting that particular move?
Who have you heard?
Governor Anne Waiguru.
Anne Waiguru may say this because, one, Anne Waiguru is representing the COG, and the COG has a problem with this kind of politics. COG is a representation of governors. They want resources from the government to come in as they had demanded for over 400 billion. Okay? They cannot start fighting the 9 or 10, 11 counties from the northeastern Kenya, which is sparsely populated. And I'm using that one as an example because we also have some parts of Rift Valley which are sparsely populated. To begin to fight amongst themselves. So as a chairperson, she definitely has of the Committee of Governors. So Anne Waiguru is not representing the voice of the Mount Kenya people. She has not said it out there. She's only said it in a statement, while other governors were standing behind her. You know, this politics. So she had to say something that goes for the people he represents. That is the 47 governors. Yeah.
All right. One man, one vote.
I hope that's understood. That's clear.
That's clear, perhaps, to the audience.
You can ask any question. You go ahead and ask for clarity.
No.
For their sake.
To the one man, one vote, 1 shilling debate. The office of the Deputy President is a symbol of national unity.
Yes.
You know, in terms of matters governance as well. That office in itself speaks of just the role that a Deputy President has to play in the Republic of Kenya, ensuring that there's equal interest, there's unity, there's peace across the Republic of Kenya. But for him to call for this particular move, especially a Deputy President that comes from a region that is highly populated, the most populous tribe across the Republic of Kenya, a region that is normally a bride anytime in the elections. Everyone is always quoting Mount Kenya. What does this now speak to persons that are living in areas that are less populated? Does it now set precedents for division across other regions?
First, let's get it very clear. The Constitution does not talk about national office, it speaks about public office.
But it's an office that is equal to...
Let's get it clear.
All right.
The Constitution does not talk about national office. It speaks about public office. Members of Parliament are public officers. Cabinet secretaries are public officers. The president is a public official. The speaker, the chief justice is a public office. The attorney general is a public office. These are public offices. And there are do's and don'ts which are spelled out in the Constitution. Each one of them should represent the interest of Kenya. Whether you are elected in Ikolomani and you sit in parliament, you're supposed to defend the interest of the country and the image of the country by making things better from where you are and transmogrifying it to the image of the national by uniting with others and working with a common understanding. Let's now go into the 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote. A member of parliament representing Makadara constituency, 1 kilometer squared could be having a population of, thousands of people. While 1 kilometer in a place like Northeastern could have not even a single person, except maybe one on transit. So who are you accounting for? It's the vegetation, and not even the wild animals, which are taken care of by the Ministry of Tourism, but we're talking about the vegetation, If there was any development that is to be taken in such a region, in such a space, there must be people who are there. Development is taken to a place or a region because of the demand that is there by the people who are inhabiting the place. But if there are no inhabitants, so how do we expect to take development in the wilderness? I'm not calling that place the wilderness. Wilderness, I'm using it as a figurative of speech. It's a statement that is a word that is explaining there are no people. Of course, there are trees. There could be some animals. There could be some, there are no people around there, living around there, and they are sparsely populated. So if the next house is 500 meters or 1 kilometer from the other, you cannot liken it to a member of parliament now who is having a kilometer, thousands of people who are making individual demands, expected to come from the taxpayers' money. So the person who is having tracts of, land, an area, a zone that is large, that is densely populated, definitely, if we were to go the population direction, that person definitely would get as per the population. So you cannot say you give 140 million to a member of parliament who has a population like here in Ruiru, voters. Now I'm talking about registered voters. Those are above 18, who are over 200,000 voters. These 200,000 voters emerge from certain families or have their own families. You're talking about a population of, within the same constituency, we're talking about a population of around 500,000 people. And here is another constituency that has a member of parliament elected with 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 votes out of the 30,000 registered voters. Okay? Give them a family and an average of maybe 3. That is 90,000. You can round it to the nearest 100th. It becomes 100,000. Okay? And this other person has got 500,000. We're talking about children. When we talk about children, we have education. We have the common school feeding program. We have the livelihood taken care of through the monies that come from the public coffers, which has actually been collected in the form of revenue as tax. Now, when you have a region where there are 30,000 people and another region that has 200,000 taxpayers, how come? And this is the insincerity that is there. You are so interested in what comes from the 200,000 in the form of tax and be shared equally with the one who has brought nothing, because the returns from the counties, there's some counties that bring 0 returns to the public offers. Yet they expect to get more where we had this clause of marginalized communities, equalization fund and all these kind of things. We didn't set a threshold that when they attain this mark, then that is the time that things should change. People from the tax-paying region, it's not Mount Kenya I'm talking about. I'm talking about Nairobi, I'm talking about Kakamega, I'm talking about Mombasa, I'm talking about Kisumu, Bungoma, and all these other areas. Ukambani, Machakos, and many other areas that have a lot of revenue that they plow back to the government. When we're looking at this insincerity, that hey, we can just sit down on a round table, discuss tax collection, but when it comes to sharing the cake, at that time it should be all equal. I brought nothing, but I want whatever you bring, we must share equally. you know. Even in normal formations, even in corporate, it's your shares that really speak for you. How much have you contributed in our share capital? As share capital, how much have you contributed to this company? You know, and that happens to be what you actually earn as dividends. So you cannot earn dividends from what you have not paid for. So how come we are paying taxes? And then it's being discovered today that the areas which are sparsely populated are funding their people to move to do what we call the rural-urban migration, funding them. They move from rural to urban, they come to the city. Then their CDF, somehow, they have a way of reaching out to the money set aside at their constituency level and reinvest elsewhere, you know. Because supporting the youth in business, and the youth in business which is being supported is in major towns, you know, that insincerity is what we are looking at. So at what point will the marginalization thing end? At what point will that attain the threshold, which has not been set yet, even by the Constitution? At what point will it happen? So let's do this. Let's be fair to the one who pays the taxes as much as the recipient.
Given that may be Mwito, there's still the regions that do not have access to water, do not have access to proper roads. There are some regions which are actually not represented as we speak in the National Assembly because, you know, either the member of parliament died and there's still some pending by-elections in those regions. And Mount Kenya, on the other hand, has got 9 cabinet secretaries in office, has got principal secretaries, has got the largest number of CEOs in parastatals, has got the largest number of ambassadors and deputy ambassadors to foreign offices, which begs the question, you know, the representation already itself shows the Kenya Kwanza government values Mount Kenya region. So what more does Mount Kenya want? Is it just a matter of population and the finances and the funding that comes from the national government?
Let me ask you a simple question, and it's not for you to answer, it's to think about. When I, as a cabinet secretary, sit in an office, who am I representing? What number of people am I representing? I'm sitting there alone. To do what? To do a national duty. If I'm a minister for environment and I hail from the Mount Kenya region, it is not meant to be a Mount Kenya ministry. It's a national ministry.
But so, you can agree it's a political reward.
A political reward to an individual.
You know, the president could have picked anyone from another region, not Mount Kenya.
If he picks anyone from any region, and whatever the person from a populated area is contributing to that government is making sense in terms of what is returned back to them, then that would make sense to them. But you cannot tell me that Moses Kuria's pay slip of $1 million or $2 or whatever amount of money that is paid in salary is meant for the Mount Kenya people, or what is paid to a certain gentleman from Rift Valley is meant for the Rift Valley people. That's meant for his family. But whatever is set aside for the people of Kenya under the ministry is supposed to benefit all Kenyans. Kindiki Kithure is not quelling feud in Mount Kenya region. So resources, he's not channeling resources under his ministry to Meru. He's actually channeling them to Pokot, because that's where the resources which are set aside for that ministry are supposed to go. He's channeling some bit of it to other areas where he's needed. And I'm not talking about Kindiki Kithure, I'm talking about any cabinet secretary. Kipchumba Murkomen is not there to start making roads, constructing roads for Kalenjins. He's supposed to construct roads for Kenyans where they are needed. You understand? That means Nairobi and every other place, including northeastern Kenya and eastern province and Nyanza, western Kenya as a whole. Okay? But whatever he earns from it, that is for him and his wife and family. But whatever he does with whatever resources have been put on his table, if there is need to complete Mau Mau Road, then he should complete Mau Mau Road in Mount Kenya. He should complete the road heading from Timau to, you know, Isiolo and wherever, the Isiolo airstrip and all these things that would bring about development in certain areas. So whatever monies that are set aside, they're not meant for the person's, community, you know. It's meant for the nation. Yeah. The salary, that one is an allowances.
But the same applies for members of parliament.
I mean,
the people that represent.
When a member of parliament is granted 140 million shillings to share amongst his constituents for development purposes, which are very well outlined. So when there are no people to do this service for, if you go to Mount Kenya region, schools have a population of not less than 800 on average, 800 students. You go to a place like Eastern, Northeastern, and some parts of even parts of Nyanza, or even Western Kenya, Rift Valley, you'll find some schools with about 200, from class 1 to class 8. So you cannot say that we will equate the interest and the demands of this bigger population as we would with the smaller population. So whoever gets 140 million for 200 people definitely benefits more than the one, or can do more for the 200 people than the one with 140 million for the 800 average students. And I'm talking about those are children. I'm talking about we have a population that has got demands. Now, when you talk about the 140 million for a place that is densely populated, of course, there's not much to spend there. So why wouldn't you equip your guys from your region with $1 million shillings to invest in Nairobi or Kakamega, or help them obtain property with CDF money, which is not supposed to be returned? It's expended on constituents. The IDs read Lagdera or Transmara, you know. So wherever the ID reads, you benefit from there. Yet you're living elsewhere. This is the irony. It must be dealt with, and that's why I'm saying the 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote might sort it, so that these people, when they have this, when they get this amount of money, they can actually invest it in their area. They will encourage people in their regions to stay there. You see, when nomadism was, and I'm using that as an example, Northeastern more mainly, because when we started the Galana Kulalu project during the Kibaki time era, that land was not as arable as it is, but it was converted into an arable land. People in Garissa discovered that, hey, I think I can have some subsistence farming within around my home, you know. But this is now something I'm saying that if they would embrace, and what the president said about sinking solar-powered boreholes in such areas would really work for them. But again, if I don't want the population to linger there, I'll not encourage that one as a leader. Itataka waende wakule CDF ya Makadara na wakule CDF ya Lagdera. And this is what is happening. So 1 man, 1 vote should actually be considered. It should come up with a formula that would actually ensure that every Kenyan benefits. So when you talk about equity and equality in the Constitution, concerning equity is when we're sharing resources in a very imbalanced manner. Some benefit more, others don't, you know, but we're still talking about equality in the equity, you know. So this is what we're saying, that the government, the leaders, should be sincere to themselves if truly they care about Kenyans. And I'm talking about Kenyans. I'm not talking about the land of Kenya. I'm talking about Kenyans. Then they should work towards making the lives of Kenyans better.
Right.
Yeah.
So as we wrap this conversation up, because we're out of time, if, you know, obviously the deputy president has said this is a hill that he will die on, and he's pushing that particular 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling debate, a notion that the president does not seem to agree. So as we wrap it up, Mwito, where now does this leave these two leaders? How do you see this relationship, political marriage for that matter, within the next, you know, few months, as we wrap it up?
I'll be very frank with you. For the first time since the president was elected, he's having a peaceful moment to plan for government resources.
This is a peaceful moment.
This year. This year is having a very peaceful moment. There are no riots. There are no chaos. I mean, it is him and his government, and he's the one at the top. You get my point? So, the president right now would like to accomplish his agenda. He would also like to use this as an opportunity to appease those who would like to, you know, draw to kind of enlarge his voting bloc that is away from Mount Kenya, outside Mount Kenya region, you know, outside the 4 million. So he would like to enlarge that one. That's why when you see the goodies that he poured on the Western Kenya favorably, they'll tell you something, you know. He did a lot for Mount Kenya, for Western Kenya during Madaraka Day. And what you're trying to say is that the demands the Mount Kenya people have is being shrouded with the haziness of the politics of succession. You know, who becomes what, and who are actually funding it is the ones who Rigathi Gachagua was telling, please do your politics in your own area. And that is how come we, Mount Kenya people would like Ndindi Nyoro to stay calm and wait for the ideal time to strike. So what you're trying to say is that the politics, the direction they're taking right now is to ensure that the 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote is not hard. And Rigathi Gachagua knows too well that this is the only way to benefit the people from his region as much as other densely populated zones in the country. And it's not only in Mount Kenya. You go to Western Kenya, there are places which are densely populated. You go to some areas in Nyanza, they're densely populated, Migori and the like. You know, so what you're saying is that it's not a preserve for Mount Kenya people. It's actually for Kenyans, because we're trying to reach out to the population itself, and those are people. So where we're heading right now is that this politics might be carried on until after the budget has been presented. So this is just a budgetary politics, I'm calling it, so that once the budget is done and now the government set the ball running, that's the time the president shall quell this feud.
All right, thank you very much, Mwita Mureithi, who's a political analyst and commentator, for coming in this morning to just shed more light about this, you know, scenario that we find ourselves in, perhaps 2018, 2022, yet again, with the president and his deputy, and the tiff, for lack of a better word, that is, you know, emerging between these two leaders. Now, the head of state is out, flew out yesterday to South Korea. And now Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is the one left behind to help in running the country. So we'll see how things pan out over the next couple of days, even as the 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling debate continues, and the varying views that are coming in from various leaders across the country concerning this particular debate. So who will emerge victorious at the end of the day? Well, we hope it is the Kenyans that will emerge victorious. So thank you for watching, and thank you for your company this morning. My name is Cynthia Nanjala. Have yourself a fantastic morning ahead. Good morning.